If none, we can move on. So today is our 4th lesson in factoring. So we've talked about factoring by GCF, factoring by grouping where you have 4 terms, factoring by difference of squares where you have 2 terms, maybe a GCF, but perfect squares. Today's factoring is going to be a little different. I think about these like puzzles. You might really not like puzzles. I like puzzles. Where you're trying to figure out what goes together. So in this, you're going to be given some example that looks like this trinomial. So it has 3 terms. Where this is A, but your A value is 1. So these examples are all when A equals 1 trinomials. You have a B and you have a C. Those are going to be some number, may be there, may not be. And we're trying to find our 2 factors like we have been. How we do that is we find 2 numbers that multiply to be whatever C is. And then whatever that would be, from that, we figure out how they would add up to be B. So let's do some examples. There are also some like side rules that may help you remember like what you should be looking for, and we'll talk about those too. So for number 1, think of 2 numbers that multiply to be 12. I'm going to list them out. Think about your factors of 12. 2 times 6.
3 times 4.
3 times 4.
4 times 3.
Okay, so we don't have to write it the other way, but keep that in mind that you could do it the other way, yes. That would be the other way, and then there's one more. Okay. So then, after we have our factors, we're looking at if we added the 2 factors together, which of those would give us 7? Okay. So if these are already positive, your factors are going to be whatever the variable is, that's going to come first in both. These are both positive, so plus, and then 3 and 4. And of course, you could distribute it back out to make sure, does this work? So we'll do that for this one. We won't do it for all of them, but if you want to see that, we will do that. So x times x would give us x squared. X times 4 would give us 4x. 3 times x would give us 3x. And 3 times 4 would give us 12, which is the same thing. So if you wanted to kind of help yourself memorize how to do this with a rule, if both of these things are a plus, so in front of B, in front of C, if those are both pluses, both of your factors are going to have pluses. Questions on that first one? Let's do another one, like 2. So think of factors of 20. 4 times 5. 2 times 10. And 2 times 1. Some of these will have a lot of factors, some of them won't. So if we were to add these together, which ones would give us 9?
4 times 5.
Yes, the 4 and the 5. So then, what would your 2 factors look like? N, but yes. And the other? Does not matter how you put them. The order does not matter. Some of them, and this helps with the checking part, some of them you may want to double check, did that actually add up to be 9? Mostly when you get into the negatives, Because you may think of two factors, but it doesn't add up to the number you got. Let's skip that. We'll do 5 and then go on to another one. Factors of 5. 1 and 5. It's prime. So its only factors are 1 and 5. Something to kind of help you. If these two numbers are close, your factors are probably 1 and whatever that number is. So what would those two factors be? 2 plus 1 and those are k's. Okay. Now let's try 7. Disregard that it's negative for right now, but what are some factors of 18? Okay. Now that it's negative, in order to multiply to get a negative, one of them has to be negative. So you can either extend this or just change where you put the negative. Start looking at it, which one would add up or subtract to give us a positive 3. So if I did negative 6 and positive 3, would that add to be a positive 3? Negative 6 plus 3, would that give us a positive 3? So that would be negative. But if I switch that, negative 3 plus 6, yes. The other two wouldn't get 3 regardless, so you could get rid of those. If you didn't know that, you could try it. Negative 18 plus 1, that's not going to give you 3. Negative 1 plus 18, again, not the same thing. Negative 9 plus 2, that would be 7. Negative 7, and negative 2 plus 9 would be positive 7. So none of those work. So it would have to be these. So then, still, same rule, use that variable, put it in front. Whatever these are, use that. So it would be plus 6 and minus 3. So kind of like, yeah.
Would it matter? Could you put n minus 3 first?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. What you can't do is switch the signs of 6 and 3, because that wouldn't work. Like before, if these are both plus, these are both plus, if the C value is negative, one of your values is going to be negative, and the smaller of the two is going to be the negative one. If you want to remember that as a rule. Let's try 10. Factors of 54. And if you don't know all your factors of 54, start dividing on your calculator by 2, by 3, by 4. Keep going. Say that one more time. 2 times 27. Okay. What's our factors? While you're thinking about factors, if you figure out what they are without listing out all the factors, you don't have to keep going. If it helps you to see them all and then do the elimination process, that's also fine. I don't know if 4 is a factor. 5 is not a factor. 6 is already a factor. What about 7 or 8? No. So because we have 6 and then 9, 7 and 8 would be in the middle. So if neither of those work, then that's all we have. So one of them has to be negative. If we were to add them together and one of them is negative, which one would give us a positive 3? Which one would be negative? So then what would our two factors be? Good. Questions so far? Probably do another one of those or switch. Sure. Let's do one more of these. 14, and then before we do these bottom ones, we'll go to the back and then come back. So factors of 6, 2, and 3. Now, only one of your numbers can be negative here. Which one would be negative? Which factors would we use?
6 and 1 is -1.
Okay. So a common mistake here is we see 5 and 2 plus 3 is 5, but one of them has to be negative. That would be a case where similar factors, but not the right one, because one of them has to be negative and that wouldn't work. So a plus 6 and a minus 1. Multiply to be negative 6 and add to be 5. Okay. On the back of this, we're going to do the opposite, where we have a negative then a positive. There's a few, if you want to circle the ones I'm talking about, negative, positive. So 7, 8, 14, 12, 10. Yeah, 10. All of those are like what I was talking about. So pick one, and we'll do a couple of them. 12. Okay. See if you can find, well, let's do this one and then we'll talk about factors. Factors of 36. Okay. Say it again. 4 and 9. Great. Now, if we're multiplying to get a positive 36, there are two ways for that to happen. They can both be positive or they can both be negative. So think about positive or negative, what would add to give us 12, and then we may have to make them both negative. So then if we make them both negative, W minus 6 and W minus 6 should give us this. When you have the same factor twice, you can either write it out twice or write it as W minus 6 squared. So it would be the same thing. So then the rule for this one would be if your B value is negative but C is positive, both of your factors are going to be negative. Let's do one more of these. Pick one. Okay. Let's hold on 17 because that's a different type, but one of the circle. Okay, we do 8. Factors of 28. 1 and 28, 7 and what? 4. Are there any others? And then I don't believe there are any others because 5 wouldn't work, 6 They both have to be negative, so which ones would add up to the 11? So x minus 4, x minus 7. Questions on that? After you finish that, flip back over to the front. And we'll do some of these ones, and then any you guys want to see, and then one last thing. Okay. So now, of the things we've talked about, if they're both positive, both of your factors are positive. If your C value is negative, one of your factors is going to be negative, and the smaller one. If your B value is negative, they're both going to be negative. If both are negative, what do you think is going to happen? The factors, both positive? Okay. Anyone have a different opinion? We're going to see here in a second. So let's start off with 15. Factors of 63. Figure out what that means. There you go. If something else to kind of help you with factors, you can add up the digits and it's divisible by 3, so like 6 plus 3 gives us 9. 9 is divisible by 3, or I can divide it by 3. It's going to be divisible by 3. So that might help you. So of these, one of them has to be negative, and they'll need to add to be negative. Add or subtract to be negative 2. And which one would be negative?
7.
9. So it would be B minus 9, B plus 7. So kind of like the opposite of the other one. If your C value is negative, one of them have to be negative, but the bigger value is going to be negative in this case. Of these last four, 16, 17, 18, pick one more and we'll do that one. Okay. So for 16, factors of 3.
1, 3.
And then, which one would be negative? For 3. So our factors would be A minus 3, A plus 1. Questions on this process, how we find the factors, how we write the answers? And then are there any from this page or the back besides the last 6 problems? Disregard that for a second, we'll come back to that we want to see, go over, have questions about. On the front. Okay. Think about your factors of 72. I'm not going to list them out this time. You figure out the factors of 72. One of them has to be negative. Figure out which one has to be negative. And tell me what those numbers would be. this answer. Anyone think they know what the two numbers are? What factors did you find? Okay. If I added one of those was negative, would they get 14? No, so not that one. If I added or subtracted one, would you get 14? Or an 18? Which one would be negative? So x minus 18 and x plus 4. So as you start to know your factors, you don't have to list them out off to the side, but if it still helps you, feel free to still do that. Any others we want to see, go over, have questions about before we do this last thing? On the back, in this last section, these A values are not 1, and we're going to talk about a different way how to factor it if it's not just what we're about to do. Look and see, is there a GCF? So GCF doesn't really go away. It's like almost in every problem. Could possibly be in every problem. So always look for a GCF. For 19, does it have one? For 19? What'd you say? Do they each have a K?
Oh,
It's something they each have in common. Divide them by 2. So that would be your GCF. If you divide them each by 2, what would be left?
K squared. Negative 4K. Negative 45.
Then we're just focusing on the inside, because that inside is what we were just doing, where our A value is 1. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 45, add to be negative 4. Think about your factors of 45. I don't think there's many. And which of those would be negative? Since C is negative, one of them has to be. So K minus 9, K plus if you wanted to check that, how you multiply, there's a couple different options. You could either distribute the 2 to the first set and then distribute that to the second. Distribute the parentheses together and then multiply it all by 2. Multiply the 2 to the second set and then distribute it all together. That's your choice. Questions on that one? Let's do 20. Does that have a GCF? And if so, what is it? Can I divide this one by 2? 1x. Don't really need the 1, just the x. If I divide an x out of each, what's left?
X squared.
Mm-hmm. So then think about your factors of 48. One of them has to be negative since c is negative. Of those factors, which would add to b2? To multiply to 48? For here? No, because we only took out x. Would negative 8 plus 6 give us positive 2? So x minus 6 and x plus 8. Okay. And then 1 more. 21. Does that have a GCF? Four. If we divide everything by 4, what's left? W squared minus 13w minus 30. General rule with these, if it has a GCF, whatever the first number is going to be your GCF. It has to get rid of that. But if it doesn't have a number, it's most likely a variable. Okay, so think about your factors of 30. One of them has to be negative because this is negative. Okay, so if one of them is negative, would that give you 13? That's another example where it looks like that should be the right answer, but it's not. 2 and 15. Which one will be negative? W minus 15 and W plus 15. So be careful with examples like that because you could easily get that one wrong. Any others we want to see, go over, have questions about in that section?
What makes these ones different than
The other one. The fact that it has a GCF that we have to pull out. The other ones did. You're talking about the other ones we just did today or the other ones from before? Yeah. The other ones don't have GCFs. You just go straight into the factors, whereas these ones has the extra piece. Any other questions? Overall, how do we feel about factoring trinomials where a equals 1? Good, okay, just need more practice. Not good, I don't understand what we're doing. Yes. Say that one more time.
I'm confused on the second part.
This part? Okay, which?
How are you getting the 99?
Here. So we were looking for factors of 45. So this is the part that I was having you guys do. I wasn't writing it down. So factors of 45, 1 and 45, 5 and 9. It has to be negative. So one of them has to be negative. Negative 5 plus 9 would not give us negative 4. But negative 9 plus 5 would. Any other questions? Before I let you practice, I do want to mention one thing that you may or may not know about. I think in the coming week or two, some of you, or maybe none of you, may be getting potential failure letters that I just had to fill out. I was given. So when your family gets that, make sure you look at it. If it says you're missing assignments, you should probably get on that. Do those. Use the 45 minutes of class time that we have, because you don't really have an excuse as to why you're not doing them. If you're missing tests, you can come get that done. If it says something about not doing assignments or low quiz, low test grades, you need to retest. So make sure that you use this time wisely, be working on those things. Right? Come see me if you need to finish a test, retest, work on retest stuff, or if you have questions on Khan Academy. So work on Khan Academy first, and then if you want or need extra practice,